Hello, YouTube. So today, a thought came to my head. I thought, if there is a God, then this God must be sort of sadistic. Because just by the very nature of reality that we humans are put into is very conducive to suffering. Just think about this for a second. The fear of death. Okay, I am overwhelmed by the fear of death. I have to live with this fear constantly lingering over me. You know, like this dark cloud. And I'm sure so many other people feel this fear of death. And yet God is allowing us, if God exists, I'm agnostic, if there's a God, he put us all in a very torturous type of situation. You know? We have to think, oh crap, like it looks like I'm going to die. Everyone around me is dying. We're getting older. Look, it's scary, okay? That's what I'm getting at, is life is freaking scary because there's so much uncertainty. We have no certainty whatsoever that we have any sort of security in the future, that we're going to live forever. That's what we have to deal with. And this God, if there is a God, it's very, it's sadistic even, right? But it doesn't mean there isn't a God. Just because God would have to be kind of sadistic, you know, if I'm speaking about if God was all powerful, right? If God actually could reveal himself and could give us a little bit more security, a sense of security, then God would have to be sort of evil not to. You know, a little bit, that's... Oh, man. Yeah. But right, just because God might be sadistic doesn't mean there isn't a God. Yeah. So that's even more reason we have to fear. We're not only fearing death, we're fearing the theoretical judgment of a theoretical God. That's even more to fear. You know, we're just surrounded by fear. We got fear of death coming at us every which way. Just, whoa. It's a lot to deal with. So I think a lot of people resort to some sort of coping mechanism. Like they tell themselves that, you know, there's an afterlife as a certainty, because that's comforting. It's comforting to think that. Okay, so what do we do about all this fear? What do we do about this dilemma that we're facing? We have death on one end, you know, aging and possibly a permanent destruction of our consciousness at the moment of our death. And on the other hand, we have the possibility that there might be some sort of God. Well, we just do the best we can. What can we do? We can try to not die, try to live forever physically, any way you can. You know, life extension technology, one option. Maybe get bit by a vampire. Who knows? I'm agnostic about vampires. I don't know. Right? I'm agnostic about so many things. So, and then we should just live with the possibility that we're going to be judged by a God. A theoretical God that might exist. And from the way it's looking at the world, looking at the suffering that goes on in this world, it's totally justifiable to think that maybe if there is a God, this God would have to be almost kind of sadistic. But It doesn't mean that there's not a God. And even if God is a little sadistic, doesn't mean you shouldn't try to gain the approval of this God. God might be kind of like us. We're not perfect. So maybe God's not perfect. Maybe he has a sadistic side. Doesn't mean maybe God is, doesn't mean God's not, doesn't have some goodness. Doesn't mean that God's not going to have some sort of fairness in their judgment, theoretical judgment. So just try to be the best person you can and hope for the best. Hope that God would be sane enough to save a good, virtuous person. And not just a good person, like a practically perfect person. That way, at least you've done everything you could do.